What is going on, everybody? Wrestling with Whiskey is back. Back live again after taking a week off last week for their official Whiskey Mania 3 pick, which I think, everybody, I'm going to do some kind of giveaway with a bottle of that because I'm going to have an extra bottle or two of that. So we'll figure something out. So stay tuned to everything we got going on in the channel. What's going on, everybody in the chat? Thank you for joining us. Victor, Wes, Sardog. What's going on, guys? Bender joining us. Scorp, what's up? Good to see you as always. Yes, in a few minutes we'll be talking to one of our Wrestling with Whiskey Barrel Club members, Mr. Mark Moore, talking about whiskey, talking about wrestling. We're talking about the new riff pick that we just did, speaking of new riff. And speaking of Barrel Club nonsense, would be remiss if I didn't mention, yes, check it out. There is all the info you need to join and be a part and help us on selections like this. New riff, which everybody is getting excited about. So who knows? Maybe we'll do another one this year. Maybe we'll do two more this year because they have, for some reason, those fools like me over there. And so there's a chance with them letting us do these quarter barrel picks, it makes it really, really easy. So there are the two tiers you can join at. And speaking of which, here are all those members, which I do need to update. So if you're watching, I know I need to add Dresden in there. I need to add one of our members, Jay, in there, one of our members, Kyle, all people who recently joined or upgraded their membership. So thank you to all those people in addition to our regular. And oh God, Steph, if you're watching, I forgot to change the spelling on your name. It still calls you Stefane, which would be an awesome 90s like hip hop name for you. Like Stefane J, the odd urbanite. Never mind. I gave you a second career, so I'm not feeling bad about it. But I don't see Steph in the chat right now. So, yes. And there's Dresden. Yes, I will add you to the card, Dresden. I did it today. I just forgot to upload it into the software here. My bad. Apologies. But speaking of patrons, speaking of the Wrestling with Whiskey Barrel Club and everything, that is the episode tonight. We were talking to yet another one of our members. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of them, how they got into whiskey, how they got into everything they do. And so without further ado, let's jump over right now. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Marcus Moore. Welcome to Wrestling with Whiskey Weekly. How are you, man?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be a member of the club and be part of the family. This is awesome. Actually, one thing I don't think you know, I believe, yes, the new riff pick was my very first pick ever.
Oh, I remember you saying that. That's so cool.
Yeah, amazing experience. I mean, not only are the club members are great, but also new riff. I mean, geez, talking about white glove service, right? It's like they are great.
Yeah, no, they did. They're doing it. They took care of us even in the midst of the kind of craziness in the world. You know, they were able to take care of us. And I was gonna jump into that in a little bit, but I'm drinking our pick, which I was just able to pick up last week. I'm so mad that they didn't let me. I don't remember getting the approval for the label. I wanted Riffle Rumble on there, but that's okay. Yeah. So this is and then you're drinking that too, right? You were able to have a little bit of your sample left.
Yeah, I still have some of my sample left. I know I owe you some labels to ship my two.
Oh, so don't worry. All in good time. We've been playing Whiskey Santa Claus, getting those out. So, well, cheers. Yeah, pour a little bit in there. Let's have a little toast.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be
right.
Robert Anderson in the chat is pouring a new riff flight himself. Lucha, what's going on?
Nice.
Well, here, cheers, Mark.
Cheers. Oh man, that's better than I remembered it.
I know, right?
It's really good. It's really good. If you haven't gotten it yet, it's a special thing. If you're waiting on your bottles, if you missed out, you missed out.
Oh,
this is a good one.
So before the pick, if that was your first pick, how familiar were you with New Riff before that?
So I was pretty familiar with them. I have tried all of their like readily available stuff. Their single barrel rye, their single barrel bottle and bond. I actually haven't tried any of their old like OKI stuff. Like everything that I've
Mm.
had has been like their own distillate, none of the source stuff. And so I was a fan of New Riff. They were actually probably the they were the ones that really started turning me on to high rise stuff.
Okay.
When I first started, it was more of just kind of normal expected mash bill in terms of moderate amount of rye or low rye. I got turned on with Elijah Craig 12 was like my first thing, and
Ooh.
that's not like a super high rye bourbon. And it was the one that really got me thinking about like, oh man, all of those herbal floral kind of like what I would like to call the high notes of the bourbon, in the bourbon world, like coming out of that rye. It was really, New Riff that kind of got me thinking about that.
Yeah.
So when the
No.
opportunity came up, I was super excited.
It's interesting. That's kind of a cool story to hear because typically, especially in today's like bourbon market, and when you hear people talk about high rye and everything, it's MGP, right? Everyone
Yeah,
talks about that
exactly.
MGP high rye. And
Yeah,
so, had you had a lot, which was what OKI was primarily made up of?
right.
So, have you had since a lot of experience with the MGP kind of high rise stuff?
I have, I would say, after, really having New Riff, I went more to the Four Roses side, right?
Mm.
And Bullet as well, because a lot of their, they have kind of the two single barrel distillate or frameworks of distillation mash bills. It's basically a mirror of Four Roses with a
Yeah.
little couple points off. So I went to that first before I really circled back around on the MGP. It was just it was fairly readily available. I was lucky enough to get in this before like the Four Roses single barrel picks were being snatched up like everywhere. So
And sold for $300 on secondary and stuff.
yeah, exactly. And so I feel kind of embarrassed now because I think I have like maybe like 13 or 14 Four Roses single barrel picks, like all cracked. And it's, they're great and they weren't that expensive. They were easy to find. Most large liquor stores had them readily
Mm.
available. Here in New York, you could find them over just in Jersey, Bourbon Street, which is a chain of liquor stores around here, always had like a few, picks at a time of Four Roses. Now it's a whole different ball game. But
Oh
yeah, I
yeah.
went to that first. That was kind of like my first thing, and then I got exposed to like the redemption stuff and all of that, which is the MGP stuff. So
Yeah. Hell
yeah,
no, that's cool. Like I said, I like hearing, and that's a cool thing for New Riff. That's a nice, and they are doing, I think, a lot of things right. You know what I mean? They're
yeah,
doing from the get go. I love that they waited to release a bottled and bond as their first release, and not like a some random 3 year bourbon just to get it out there or
yeah,
whatever. No,
absolutely.
I've been very impressed. But we jumped right into like the New Riff talk. I was gonna save that for a little later, but that's totally okay. Let's circle back a little bit though.
Cool. Yeah.
Basic interview stuff. Tell us just a little bit about you. Where are you from? What do you
Okay.
do? Who are you? Give us the elevator pitch of Mark.
Yeah, so I am from Alabama, born and raised in Alabama. If anyone knows anything about Alabama distillation history, there is none post Prohibition, really. So I'm from Alabama. I moved to New York for college, and been between New York and DC ever since. I currently work in music partnerships, so music strategic partnerships at Instagram, and Instagram/Facebook. I've been here for about 3.5 years, working in music in a variety of capacity. I'm very fortunate in my life that I've only not done music maybe 2 years out of my
Wow.
professional career. Every other time in my career, it's all been around music. So yeah, music and whiskey. That's like my two things, man.
That's cool. I mean, so your music partnerships, but I mean, did you grow up playing music? Do you still play music?
I did. So I started off as a violinist when I was about 6, and I majored in violin performance in undergrad as well.
Really?
But I play a little piano. You might see it behind me or something. And but I mostly play piano because studying harmony and stuff in school is kind of a requirement. So I've always maintained it just as a result, and I do it to just kind of understand music a little bit better, outside of the part of just the violin. But violin is still my thing. And, pre-COVID, I was doing probably 4 or 5 shows a month, traveling around a good bit. And that's actually how I got interested in whiskey. We would travel around to these random places, like in the middle of the hills of Virginia or West Virginia, even. Um, and when we weren't playing a show, it's not like there was a whole lot around. So first thing we do when we get to a new place, it's like, oh, let's go check out the liquor store. Let's see what's there. And at that time, you could pick up pretty much anything you wanted. This is like back in 2011, 2012. So yeah, it was not a problem to find whatever you wanted in a Virginia ABC store. Um, and so that was the thing that got me into whiskey. It was one day I went to a place, and we asked the guy behind the counter, like, what's great, what's good, what should we try? And it's like, oh, well, Elijah Craig is on sale right now, so give it a try. So I got a bottle of Elijah Craig 12. I think at the time it might have ran me like 23, $24 or something. um and it was delicious. And I'll never forget, we were like rehearsing, drinking Elijah Craig, and we're like, man, this is really good. Like, yeah, this is outstanding. This is fantastic. And from there, it's just been like, it's been over. It's been a problem.
So that's what I was going to ask. So was that kind of like your gateway into the hobby of whiskey? Was like,
Yeah, it was really the gateway. That was the start of it. So at that point, whenever we traveled anywhere, it was like a ritual. It's like, every time we would go on tour or anything, like one of the first stops is like, let's go check out what the local liquor store is like. And it's not just, what's funny, it's like the experience is not just simply getting the whiskey and whatnot. It's like going to a liquor store in a place you've never been is kind of a snapshot of that location, right? It's like the people who are there, what are they carrying? Is it all, absolute peach, or is it, what's there, right? And it kind of tells you a little bit about the community, just like going into this liquor store and seeing what's there. I know in my hometown of Marion, Alabama, it's the liquor store completely tells a story of like what's there. Like it completely tells a story. So you have a slew of Seagram's gin, and I would say like there's an entire wall of probably just Seagram's gin in various different sizes, and like that's half of the store.
Yeah.
It's just that one thing. And then you go to the other side, they do have some bourbons, and occasionally they'll get a mistake delivery of like a bottle of Eagle Rare or a bottle of Buffalo Trace, or like, and it's like completely by mistake. And or they have like the Dusties. It's a great place for Dusties. You can walk in and you'll see every bottle of Booker's for the past 3 years.
Yeah, because nobody's buying it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's your win.
Spend $60 in this small town in Alabama. Nobody, right? So yeah, it's cool to like go into a liquor store and kind of have that experience. So it kind of was started off that way. Like we would go to different towns, have that experience. And over after a while, we had all of these cracked bottles, and you begin to really tell the difference between the taste and the profiles, and like, what's happening in Kentucky versus what's happening in Tennessee. And so that just kind of started me to look, researching more, reading more about it, meeting more people in the community. And so, yeah, it was really the thing that opened it up. It was just like, it was a social thing. It was, hey, we're going to this place, let's pick up a bottle of something. And it was always bourbon. And yeah.
Dude, that's so funny because it's so reminiscent of what I kind of did as I was getting into whiskey. I mean, you talk about being on the road. I'm used to being on the road a lot too, and that's what I would do in my spare time. Would be it was for me. It was after because I'd wake up, get food or whatever, and then it was gym time, and then it had a couple hours between that and the show, and so let's check out the local liquor store. You know what I mean? And I never really thought of it that way, but you put it really, really well about it. It is always a snapshot, and especially, and I would always try to do this. Depending on the town, it was hard, but you would try to avoid the Total Wines, right? Those big chain liquor stores that have pretty much the same stock in every state they're in the country. So, I mean, they're great stores, they're big, the good selection, but it's those little tucked in the corner of a strip mall little places, or on the side of a highway kind of kind of places that you can find some of the most random stuff. And like, you never know, like Dusty's, or not even like Dusty, but still, sometimes you can find those Elijah Craig Big Red 12s sitting on some shelves.
Absolutely. Grab them, contact me. I'll take them off your hands.
Yes, you have been informed, everybody. I was actually, it's funny, I was in Jersey, New York for an appearance a week or two ago. And right by Newark Airport, there was this little restaurant, like the only restaurant right by our hotel by the airport was this like little Italian complex. It was like, because they had like a bar, they had like a fine dining restaurant, and then they had a liquor store in the middle, all under the same name. And it's a tiny little liquor store. So we had time before our reservation, so we went in and talked about, like, on the top shelf there was a Jim Beam Black Label, age stated 8 years, which is interesting. I'm like, I've never seen Jim Beam Black with an age statement on it.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of cool. I wasn't sure. I'm like, is this from like the 90s or some shit or whatever? Turns out it's from like 2012.
Okay, but still,
like that you don't see that they started taking those age statements away a while ago, so it was kind of cool sitting there for $30 or whatever. So
amazing.
It's pretty wild. A couple people in the chat are asking before we go down the whiskey rabbit hole. The gold record behind you, is that yours? What's the story there?
So that gold record is not a gold record as one thinks of a gold record, like, you know, based off of album sales and all of that. Actually, it was given to me by Facebook because I helped to launch the very first music product ever. If you ever added music to your Instagram stories, that was a product that I worked on, and so they gave me a record in, you know, in honor of the work that I did on it. So it's not like a gold record as in, like, you know, I sold 1 million copies of an album or anything.
So when I do my story and I'm filming my dog, and the music with the lyrics scrolling by and everything, you helped introduce that program.
Yes,
that's cool as shit. I wish. See, I'm gonna have to retitle this video after it goes up. We're not just talking to like Wrestling with Whiskey Barrel Club member patron. No, we're talking with like Facebook, social media, music, you know, extraordinaire Mark Moore. We gotta bring him in.
Well, we can do it to bring him in. We can do it to bring him in. I am one of many. I'm one of many in the team for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But anyway, screw all that stuff. Back to whiskey. So you talk about like Elijah Craig, the 12-year. That was what was that like?
That was the one.
Yeah, was that like the light bulb bourbon?
That was a light bulb bourbon. You know, we had been drinking before then. You know, of course, like whenever we go somewhere, we'll pick up a bottle of bourbon typically. But like that was the light bulb one, and it was just like the difference in between, like, you know, the $18, $15, like right up to the 23, and it was just game changing. Yeah,
I mean,
instantly game changing.
Do you ever recall traveling around again? Something I'm used to. Did you come across any stores in like a small town that you remember, like, holy crap, like Honey Hole sort of thing?
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, man. I have a place that I do not disclose, that is literally 3 blocks from my house, right? And it's like a liquor store with with the glass partition that you have to like slide your money through, and they're like snaking the bottles around. And I promise you, I can go in any day of the week and get, you know, Weller 107, Weller Special Reserve, Blanton's, all at MSRP. And they also get Taylor. And so I usually check in like once a month because they get Taylor single barrel, Taylor barrel proof, all of that. And they keep it at MSRP. So like I have that one place that I go, like, you know, quite frequently because it's so close to my house, and I just go check it out. And they know me. They're like, "Oh yeah, you're that guy." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm that guy." And you know, they have like 20 bottles of blends sitting there for, you know, $50 right now. But
damn, yeah, keep that to yourself. No kidding.
Yeah, And there are a lot of places like that. Some of them have gotten a little bit, hip to it. There's this one place that's also close to my house. It's funny because these two places are a matter of blocks from each other. I go to one, it has, it gets every release of Stack Junior. They'll get like 7 bottles, and they have it up for like 150, right? And then the place around the corner, they usually get a fewer bottles. They usually get like 4 or 5, but people just aren't going there for Stack Junior. And they have it for MSRP. So, I go there and, check it out. And there are a couple places around the corner for me that has like every single Parker's from it, like every last one, but they're charging like $600.
Yeah,
plus.
of
And
course.
then they get the Michter's toasted barrel, and they just don't, or the Michter's toasted barrel strength, and they don't know what that is, so they'll have that at MSRP, and it's like, oh goodness gracious, like this is kind of crazy.
It's just hit or miss on like what they jack
Yeah.
up and what they. Oh, that's wild. Well, it sounds like I might be sending you a shipping label one of these days to just mule some stuff back here to Chicago. No, that's that is the ultimate. Not just to find it, but man, a couple blocks away from your house. That's
Yeah, and so I usually do it and trade with people that I know,
Yep.
folks that and I'm a MSRP trader, so I'm like, hey, trade, something that's the same price, and we'll work it out. Like we'll just do a straight trade for something in the same price range. If it's in,
Yeah.
$15, $20, yeah, sure, that's within the same price range for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, trust me, we'll make it super fair.
So what's the at that? We'll take that store, the one that's like 3 blocks from you. What's the best thing you've walked in at one day and like found?
The
Or
first
that
time
they,
I went, the first time I went, it was like the entire it was like the Weller barrel proof, the Weller single barrel. I'm sorry, the EH Taylor barrel proof, the EH Taylor single barrel, the rye, and I think that was it. And they had all of them just like sitting there for MSRP, and I was like, so like you guys got all of these? They're like, yeah, we got 3 bottles of each. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Let's do this. They're like, yeah, it's been here for like a year. And then they had like a Booker's from like 2016 or something.
Damn.
And I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. There is another place that has about 15 Taylor barrel proofs that just nobody was buying. They had them for so long, but now they've jacked up the price on all of them. So I'm just like,
boo.
yeah. Oh, I did get a Parker's, the 11-year single barrel.
Mm-hmm.
I did get that for MSRP with no tax. So I got
Really?
yeah.
Wait, was that? Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones actually.
Yeah, that was a special find.
Yeah, that is an MSRP. That's nice.
Yeah.
I've paid like, I'm embarrassed to admit. I mean, I think I was in LA one time, and I was with Baron Corbin, our good friend here, and I wanted to be the whiskey hotshot, so I bought us each a pour. It was like $35 a pour for that.
Wow.
Well, and so like,
hey, it's better to do it on the pour than than do it on a bottle and not know if you're gonna like it or whatever. I get it.
True, but what did you get the bottle for? About $100, $120?
Yeah, I think it was 120. Yeah.
Yeah, and my ounce and a half pour was $35.
Yeah,
a quarter of the price of the entire. Anyway, that's we'll never escape that fully. I know that.
So the ABC stores, and I will say this about Alabama, right? It's like, it sucks that like everything's through the ABC store and all. It's kind of like the whole system is a little strange, but a benefit is if you're not in the fall season, which is like, the crazy special edition allocated drops, anything that comes through is going to hit the shelf. And so if you get to know the person at the store, like I always check in with people at the stores near where my parents live when I visit, and just say, hey, do you have anything special coming in anytime soon? And, one day I went and they were like, hey, on Tuesday, we're supposed to get a big shipment in. It's been a long time since we got some good stuff. I kid you not. Like I walked out with like two 2 bottles of Old Fitz Bottle and Bond, and keep in mind it's ABC store, so it's all
Yeah.
MSRP. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Elijah Craig 18. Um, I got, they had tons of Weller 107. It was just like a slew of things. It was just like all in
Yeah.
one drop. And my
Jeez.
thing that I was most excited about was they've got their first shipment of early times, which was in a 1 liter bottle too.
Yep.
So that was actually like my favorite thing when I got there, because it's like for the price, for the value, and like actually a great tasting whiskey too. I was like, yo, this early times, I've been looking out for this. and it hit. And I was like, yes. Even more so than like the Old Fit stuff.
Yeah. That's fun. The early times Bottle and Bond one.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude,
exactly.
that stuff's good. I'm afraid of what's going to happen to that now. I'm
Yeah.
worried. I
Yeah,
hope.
I hear you. No,
I
man,
don't know,
I am
man.
too. It's like, it's a little bit about like what happened with McKenna. Um, and it's like McKenna, with it being single barrel, you get some things that are great and you get some that are, less great. I have a bottle that I've been nursing for like a year that tastes like straight vanilla ice cream.
Mm.
Yeah, I got it back there. Yeah. And it's like straight vanilla ice cream. It's just delicious. And I have another bottle that I'm like, okay, it's good. I think it's if you spent $40 on it, you won't be mad.
Yeah.
But if you spent $80 on this, like I would be pissed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So but the early times, you're right. Like it's one that's like, ooh, it might creep up in price. It could creep up a little bit in price and completely justify it, but
Well, that,
you
and I
know,
don't know what, I mean, since Sazerac bought it. So I don't know if it's going to be, are they still going to be made by, Brown Foreman for a little bit? Are there
right.
contracts in place? Are they going to take over production? Is it going to be, Buffalo Trace juice in the next year kind of thing? Which, I mean, I guess I wouldn't
I would
complain.
hope so, right? Like I would imagine they would have had those barrels allocated by now and just like set aside for at least the next year,
Right.
maybe. Yeah, yeah, right. And then maybe there's a period of transition, or maybe they start blending distillate by chance. But you know, I with that being said, we're talking about Brown Foreman now and Old Forester barrel proof stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on the single barrel Old Forester picks?
So I have not had a ton of them yet.
Okay.
I will, because people snatch them up, and if any store, here in Chicago, any store that gets them,
Right.
they put out a post on Facebook or whatever. They're gone in an hour or less.
Yeah.
You got to run to the store. So I've had one from one of our more established stores here in Chicago. Shout out to Warehouse Liquors.
Nice.
They're a little hot. They've all run like they're nice, but
But they're hot.
they run real hot, and like they're
They're
all in like
hot.
the 130s. I don't think they're crazy. Like I imagine they're like the regular barrel picks. I mean they're anywhere from 4 to 6 years old. They're not crazy age, so like they're a little rough around the edges. And like I said, this store in Chicago has the owner has a great palate, and so it's just like, and these stores know that they're allocated and they're hard to get, so sometimes they'll charge 80, 90, $100 for one of these bottles. And
Yeah.
man, I don't know if I buy another one at that price.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. There's a liquor store, Maciano's in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is not too far away from where my parents live in Alabama. And they do frequent barrel picks. Luckily, they keep their barrel picks really reasonable, like at suggested MSRP. So, you can get the Old Forester, like a single barrel for it in the, I think around 60, typically 50, 60, somewhere around there. Um, so whenever I've tried a few of theirs. I've also gotten it lucky and gotten them a few other places as well. And I agree with you, actually. Every last one of them are a little hot, come off a little bit young. The 100 proof, though, however, is very good. And I heard her talk from the chief taster. She just came out with the 117.
Yep, saw
Um,
that.
right. So I heard a talk with her, and she actually said they're two different stashes of barrels. So for the 100 proof, they go with shorter barrels. Now, she didn't explain why they were shorter, if it was just simply random shorter, or if they're actually aged for a little bit longer, and that's the reason why they're shorter. but she did say that the 100 proof barrels are actually chosen. They choose which one goes in what program based off of, um, how short the barrel is. If the barrel's short, it goes into the 100 proof program. If it's not short, it goes into the standard selection program. So she preferred the standard selection barrel proof program. So she actually prefers those shorter barrels, and that go into the 100 proof selection program. So I'm just saying, and there might be something there.
That's interesting. Well, because I was thinking that too when I started having these barrel. I'm like, man, because I've had a couple of really nice of the 90 proof Old Forester picks, and
Yeah.
I did. I'm like, I'd like to set a little bit more concentrated, but I'm like, 100 proof seems perfect. 100 proof is one of my favorite proof points.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
right in. It's solid. It's enough to
Yeah.
really get a punch of flavor, but it's not going to kick you in the teeth, kind of thing. So the other thing I'm wondering now that you said, because I didn't hear that she said that. That's very interesting to know. I wonder if it has anything to do with if use a shorter barrel in the 100 proof program because you're going to add more water and get more bottles out of it versus a barrel proof option. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. That's what she said. It was actually based off. They did it in principle based off of like the predictability of the number of bottles, right? They don't want someone entering the program expecting to get 200 bottles and then they come out with 140, 160
Right.
or whatever. So that was the original intent behind it. But as a result, with that much evaporation, it's going to change the juice.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting. Like if they're using almost exclusively short barrels, it does.
Yeah.
I wonder maybe they're either maybe higher floor, so they're
Exactly.
you know what I mean. They're either they're a little bit older, more evaporation, which means more concentrated flavors. Ooh, that is a fun tidbit of information. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna keep trying for that one, but I know both the 100 proof and the barrel strength are on like crazy allocation like everywhere, but. We're gonna try it. I did talk to them today for you and for everybody out there in the Barrel Club. We are talking to Heaven Hill right now about an Elijah Craig pick. So,
Oh wow.
we're hoping.
And is it true that Elijah Craig is going towards offering some barrel proof picks as well?
Yeah, so that the label was passed by the TTB. It interestingly it's kind of like it almost echoes like the Knob Creek picks originally. Because the label, I'm not sure if you saw it, it was a 9-year age statement for the single barrel proof.
Okay. All right.
So like I don't know, it's just they're gonna kind of stick with like 9-year stocks primarily, but you may have the chance to get like a 10-year or something like that, kind of like the Knob Creek picks were for a while. It said 9 years, but often you'd get a 10-year pick, an 11-year pick, whatever.
Gotcha. Well, I guess since the age statement has to fit the minimum, right? It's
Right.
like 9 years, the youngest. It could be older. I get Whistle Pig does that too, right? Where it's like
Yes.
you might end up with a 17-year-old Whistle Pig and a 10-year
bottle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think those are supposed to roll out. I heard that it was approved for like May. So I don't know when the program will start picking.
Okay.
Those are going to be interesting. I mean, so what everyone I've talked to, it's going to be interesting to see because I haven't had too much. I mean, you have trouble finding Elijah Craig barrel proof, but when I do, I've never seen that gouged too much. I've always paid $50 to $65 for it.
Yeah.
Which I know it's a blend, but 12-year barrel proof for $50 to $70. I'm curious what these 9-year single barrel. Are they going to be $90? Are they going to be $100 at some of these stores? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I'm curious about.
Well, especially since they've had, such a widely available single barrel, 94 proof. I think it's 94 proof selection, right? Since those are like you can go to a lot of stores and get those. And some of those are like fantastic, by the way. But I have a couple that are, right. They're at 12-year. Like they're right at the 12-year or 13-year. So it's like, man, that stuff is good. For it, sometimes I wish it was a little bit higher proof, but honestly for, $38, $36, however much they're charging for it, like, come on, like you can't complain about that. Right. I'm hoping I don't know. They don't go over 60 though. I'm hoping like keep it under 60. That seems about right.
Yeah, no kidding. I've always, I don't know about you, But when I first got into bourbon and everything like that, and I was like, oh yeah, look at all this stuff. I immediately jumped right into like I was like Mr. Proof Snob, right? Like
Okay.
if it's under 100 proof, I'm not touching it, kind of thing. Like
Wow.
I had a period of that. I'm like, oh, barrel strength, no water, unfiltered, uncut, right? Anything less is crappy. It was a brief period, but I was like, man, yeah, all barrel proof, all these like single barrel products. But as I've gone on and on and on, I'm like, now I don't like it if it's like 80 proof. That usually is a bit much. But I'm like, I'm finding a lot of things I really love in like the 90 to 100 proof range. I don't
Uh-huh.
know if you found that's happened to you at all.
I started there. I'll be honest with you. I started. That's where I was lucky to start because from my own collection. And so after like I got into after the Elijah Craig experience, and we would go out and buy bottles on the road and whatnot. My fiance, she wasn't my fiance at the time, but she's my fiance right now. She really saw
Congratulations, by
that.
the way.
Thank you. She really saw that I was digging the whole bourbon thing, and so for one of my birthdays, she went to a liquor store and asked like, hey, for someone who's getting a bourbon, what should we get? Like, what should I get them? And she got me an array of things that I really liked. And so one was actually Blade and Bow. So
Okay.
like the Blade and Bow one, super standard offering. She got me a Jefferson's Ocean cast strength, um,
Okay.
which which is like, if you haven't tried the cast strength, it's actually a world away from like the standard Jefferson's Ocean, and like well worth the extra proof, in my opinion. And then I think the other thing she got me, actually, which was Dickel, Uncle Nearest 1856 at one point. And so um, it gave me kind of like a little bit of an array, right? Because like the Blade and Bow, I think is 90 proof or something around
Mm.
there. Uncle Nearest is 100 proof for that particular offering, and that cast strength, Jefferson Ocean was right around 120, maybe a little bit shy of 120. And so I started, with kind of being introduced to like this array of proofs anyway. And so it was, low proof stuff I didn't avoid, right? I happened to like Weller as well. It was a lot easier to find than for like the Weller 12s for me. So like I was able to grab Weller 12 for a little bit of nothing. And that's at 90 proof. So, it was easy to get.
Yeah.
And so that was always good for me. Like I wasn't until a little bit later that I really started doing like the higher proof stuff. And now I love it. Like I must admit, like I find times where I'm like, man, it's been a minute since I had something below, 100 proof. And
Yeah.
so let me just go back and revisit. And so certain things work well for me there. I must admit, you gotta bring something special for something to be below 100 proof for me. It's got to be something a little special.
I agree with that. I get that. Um,
Oh,
you
speaking of
mentioned,
which, if I can
ooh,
if I can talk about what I just poured just now for a
yes,
second.
please.
All right, so if you haven't tried it, this is another craft distillery, McKinsey Bottle and Bond. This is their wheated offering. It's a this is minimum 4 years, of course, because of bottle and bond, but I actually think they state like 4 years. It's not older. And this is great. I must admit, it is
Okay.
absolutely fantastic. Um, I have yet to try the cast strength version of this because they do have a single barrel program. Um, and it's a little hard to get into because they're small craft distillery in Finger Lakes, New York. But I've heard outstanding things. I've read reviews about their cast strength wheated bourbon. I have some of that cast strength regular bourbon and that cast strength rye, and it's like their rye bourbon is fantastic at cast strength, um, and their rye itself is fantastic. They do have a lower barrel entry point, so that
That's
that
huge.
helps. That's huge, right? Very very huge, right? And I think Bourbon Pursuit now on their Pursuit United uses McKinsey.
So I don't know if it's I was just gonna bring that up because I just man I went through a bottle of that, and their blend to Kenny and Ryan's was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a blend of Bardstown stuff, undisclosed Tennessee, and then Finger Lakes Distilling,
which is Mackenzie.
Okay, I was gonna ask.
This is the 100 proof version of the wheated that they have in there.
Gotcha.
So yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I've heard good things about the Finger Lakes Distilling and everything. So Mackenzie is their brand, and the distillery is okay.
Yeah, Finger Lakes. Yeah,
got
exactly.
you.
And I'll be honest with you, man, it is well worth the trip. I would say wait to, you're in Chicago, so you're used to the cold. So, like you'll be fine. You can go now and you'll be like, oh, this is nothing. But for those of us who do not live in the Arctic tundra of the United States, I would wait until June before going up there because it's cold as hell.
So I've seen Mackenzie around or whatever. I don't know if I've seen the Bottle and Bond yet here. I might look for it. What's MSRP on that?
$39.99.
For a craft distillery? 4-year a bonded product? That's pretty good.
Yep, absolutely.
So
it's fantastic.
Have you been there though in person?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
And I have been there. It's right on Seneca Lake. It's gorgeous there. And they're actually the only distillery on that lake. Like there's a whole bunch of vineyards that's there, but they're the only distillery. It's a really cool operation. Now, by New York law, the Farm Distillery Bill, which is interesting to note because something to keep in mind when you think about New York whiskey and just kind of like where it's available, where it's not. I think by law they cannot distill more than 75,000 gallons a year.
Oh.
So if you reverse engineer that, or just do the math, that's basically like a barrel and a half. Well, it's a little bit. It's like a couple barrels a day, basically, is what they're limited to actually distilling. So this goes for like Kings County, Hill Rock, all of that, because they're under the New York Craft Distillery Law. So it can be a little bit hard to find because they are limited in production and therefore limited in distribution. But I'm super happy that Mackenzie has kept their prices in like a very reasonable way, and Kings County is another, they've been able to keep it as well. Some of the Hill Rock stuff I think is a little bit pricier than what it should be, but I get it. There's some additional costs with like the secondary barrel process and all that stuff, it is a little pricey, I think, for some of the juice. Some of it is like bonkers. Some of it is otherworldly, but some of it is like, eh.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I didn't know they put a cap on production
So there's a New York Farm Distillery law that which is basically every distillery in New York State. They only allow it if you can be considered a farm distillery. What is a farm distillery? I don't quote me on this, but this is the general idea. I think 80% of the raw products or the raw source of grain has to come from inside New York State. So your corn, rye, barley, wheat, etc., has to come from New York State, 80% of it. And, you have to meet the requirements of, 75,000 gallons or less, and a few other rules in that spirit in order to distill in New York. And prior to that, and that only started 11 years ago. I think 11 or 12 years ago. Prior to that, there were no distilleries in New York State. It wasn't legal at all.
It was to distill?
To distill.
Oh, no. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was their pathway to legal distillation. So your oldest distilleries, which I think Mackenzie's like it's like one of the top 3 oldest distilleries. Kings County is another one that's a bit old, and I think the folks who do Ragtime, I think the Ragtime Rye, I think they're up there like it's the 3 oldest or something like that distilleries in New York State. Maybe someone in the group is there.
That's really interesting. So I'm like, if somebody wanted to be the New York version of Beam or Heaven Hill, they couldn't right now.
They couldn't.
Even if you were like, hey, whatever, I'm not going to be a New York craft distiller. I'm going to be I'm going to ship my grain from out of state. They don't allow it. They just don't allow it.
Yeah, my understanding is that currently it is only you can only distill under the New York Farm Distillery bill, which has you meet all these requirements. So
Very
nope,
interesting.
can't do it. Can't do it.
Damn. Maybe one day.
Yeah. Which when I heard that the Pursuit United model included this, which I agree with you. I think the Pursuit United stuff like that, it's a delicious blend, right? It's a damn good blend. The one thing that did leave me a little bit bothered, and not bothered in like I'm against the bottle. I love the bottle. Is like, man, am I gonna be able to get McKinsey as easy as I was before? Because now they're using it.
Because now they're outsourcing it a little bit. Nah, you'll be fine.
For selfish reasons.
Yes, of course. Of course. No. I think you'll be all right for a little while. Although they've said for like United 2, they might not. It's not necessarily going to be the same exact distilleries. It might be a different blend.
That's true.
I think you might be safe for a while. Maybe. As things go on, maybe we'll look into it. Maybe we can try to weasel into their single barrel program potentially for the group here.
It's great, and even if not, I'll tell you, it's worth the trip. It's absolutely worth the trip. There's a place right next to it called Glen Watkins State Park. It's a New York park. It has like 25 waterfalls or something crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's a hell of a hike. So be prepared because it's like the long trek is like 6 miles or 7 miles, but it's not easy. It's not flat. It's like it's all in caverns and all this stuff. So, be a little bit prepared for that. But it's great. It's fantastic, worth the trip.
Well, I was gonna say, it sounds like you'll earn a drink after it at least then. So hell yes. All right. Well, so before we kind of got on the air, you had mentioned that you're like, we're not going to get through this without talking a little bit of wrestling. So I will transition it there. And so you're a wrestling fan, which probably was one of the reasons that kind of brought you here. How did you get into wrestling and stuff? How did that come into your life?
Man, I'm from Alabama, man. It's like wrestling's a religion. It's like anytime, and yeah, I know you tour with the group, so you probably went to like the BJCC in Birmingham or the Coliseum in Montgomery. Like, every time you guys come to town, I was there. Like ever since I was a kid. I was a kid with like the Ultimate Warrior wrestling buddy. I still have it, by the way.
Hell
the
yes.
Snake like action figure. I remember the Sergeant Slaughter's Hulk Hogan matches, right? So, first of all, I do have a question for you.
Please.
And you gotta tell me, what's Eddie like?
I don't know. I've never met him.
You never met Eddie Guevara?
No, I mean he died in 2006.
Oh, and when did you start?
Oh, I didn't start wrestling until 2011.
Oh shit! Damn! Oh man!
How old do you think I am?
My bad.
It's okay. It's fine. I make this joke all the time because I'm like, you look at people like Sean Spears, who's an AEW superstar former. That guy is like, I love him to death. And if he ever watches this, he's like approaching 40, but he looks 10 years younger than I'm 33. He looks like 10 years younger than me. He looks like he's in his mid-20s. The bastard. And I've always looked older. Yeah, no, I didn't start wrestling until I started training in 2011. And I got signed in 2012, and I didn't start dating my wife until 2013.
So what does it feel like to be part of like that legacy, like through marriage and all of that?
So I always feel weird like addressing that in a way just because people ask that because like I think a lot of people ask from like a fan perspective, like holy crap to be that close to like, and for me. That all kind of went out the window when I started like dating my wife because I didn't fall for her because her last name was a famous wrestling last name kind of thing. You know what I mean? No. And so like the minute like I really like started falling for her, like I didn't even think about that stuff until I had to meet her mom. And then and then it kind of comes into play a little bit. But no, honestly, like, so the thing is, I never think of it in terms of like, I like, I, I will not, it's always weird because I'm like, I don't consider myself part of like the Guerrero legacy,
I
right?
understand. Yeah.
I'm, by relation, I'm part of the family and it's an honor, you know. I'll be honest, I haven't had a lot of contact with the Guerrero side. I've hung out with Chavo a few times, but the rest of the brothers, I've never really met. I've met Eddie's sister. It's mostly though Vicky and Shaw's sister and things like
Okay.
that. So from Amy, you know, it's totally detached from wrestling. You know what I
Totally
mean?
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like, and I get it.
You know, and if it wasn't, you know, every time you go over to like family gatherings or anything, you probably should have bricked, you know. So it's
Yeah, right. No,
like the
true.
pressure's on.
No, absolutely. And so yeah, so for me it just became totally detached from that, which is because I did, don't get me wrong, because I grew up like, I'm, as many people know, I'm a hardcore wrestling fan. That's why I did
Yeah.
what I did, and that's why I do what I do. And Eddie was one of my favorites, and I was one of those people crying on my living room couch during the memorial shows and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I was that guy. And so I would think I would, but man, like like I get is weird. I'll put my wife over for a second. Smart man. But no, it's testament to just how like into her and everything I was, because like
I think I get it too, because like on the music side, you know, I started off like on like deep into the jazz world, and I majored in jazz performance in undergrad. And being in New York, I became close with like a lot of you know, living legends and people that were you know, the people Grammy nominations, Oscar nominations, and one of those people for me was Abby Lincoln. And also, like as part of my time, like here in New York, I was Wynton Marsalis's music librarian for 4 years, and like I went on the
really.
road with them and everything. And so, to like people would ask me like, what was that experience like, and all of that. And honestly, it really did feel like family. It's like once you get into that community, and I can imagine, I can definitely see the love in like the wrestling community. It comes out with it. You know, it's like it becomes like this unique family that's really hard to ever put in the words, and like that family element like supersedes all, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I can only imagine, man.
Yeah, no, you absolutely you hit it on the head. Like, it is, you have those pinch me moments, I think, when you first kind of step into the world and you're
Yeah.
part of that. Like, and I had that, like, just, I mean, getting into wrestling, and then even like, yeah, like meeting Vicky and being part of the family. And I mean, you do have a couple of those like, holy crap, like what's going on? But then it just becomes part of your life. And like you said, like when you're working with these people and stuff like that, it just kind of becomes, you have those pinch me moments, sure, but then you're like, man, this is just my kind of my work family, my other
Right.
my other crew here, and it just becomes part of your life. And that's probably the best way I can explain. Oh, actually, good question in the chat here. Someone
Yeah.
with your music, have you ever played with Marcus Miller? They're asking.
So I have produced a show by Marcus Miller.
Okay.
And so we did this show that was called the Mini Modes of Miles at Jazz and Lincoln Center. This was probably back in 2008 or so. And one reason why I'm thinking about that show in particular is that Wallace Roney, who we lost during the COVID, like the height of the COVID epidemic, who's a fantastic trumpet player, was on that show. And it's the first time I ever met Wallace on that show. But I did produce a show with Marcus. Marcus did introduce me once at a festival that I was playing, which was the DC, the Capitol Jazz Fest in Washington, DC. And he was the host, but we never actually have played together. But it's not too late, because
No,
Marcus,
no, baby.
you know, Marcus and I, we can definitely get down. If he ever calls, trust me, I'm jumping on that call.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I was reminded a little bit of a weird like wrestling whiskey connection / Alabama connection.
Okay.
So we would always do TV in like Birmingham, right?
Yep.
And our lead doctor lives in Birmingham, and he works out of Birmingham. That's why anybody who gets injured goes to Birmingham.
I've heard this. I've heard this before.
Yeah, Dr. Dugas. Dr.
Okay.
Dugas out of Birmingham, Alabama. His office and his everything is out of there. And so I remember like he would also like it was either an owner or like a part owner of like this like sushi restaurant slash bar. So the boys would go there and stuff too. But then like how long ago was it? I want to say maybe a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I learned he started a distillery in Birmingham.
Wow. Okay.
Dread River, I believe it's called.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exact. I was just there about 2 weeks ago, and I'm driving through the south side of Birmingham, and I see this place like Dread River Distillery, and my fiance and I are talking, and we're just like, what?
Yeah.
Birmingham's trying to come up. Like,
So yeah, I don't know their whole deal. Like I was kind of pissed because like I remember when I saw that I reached out, I sent him like a message. It's like, dude, I'm a huge whiskey. I'm like, tell me what the deal is. I'd love to like talk to you about it. And he never hit me back. But yeah, so like I think he's like a part owner or maybe just I'm not sure if he's just an investor or what is exact. But he was one of the people who helped start this and. I know they're making stuff. They have a product out, so I don't know if that's some source stuff. I don't know where from.
okay.
But yeah, so Dread River in Birmingham is actually part owned by the WWE surgeon.
So this is exciting to hear because I always thought that Alabama could be like a great place for distilling in general. The climate hits in the sense that you have this super warm climate, and in North Alabama, like probably a little bit north of Birmingham, really, you get like some pretty cold, pretty cold winters. So you get this kind of this drastic swing that kind of helps with the process. In South Alabama, it's probably going to be a little bit more like Texas, which we know Texas has been putting out some interesting things.
Yeah.
Right. So part of it's due to the heat. I think that it could work out to be a really interesting place for distilling, just given the climate, ready access to between corn, rye, and everything else. Like everything grows in Alabama, so you could figure it out. It could be interesting, man. Like I'm not sure if you've ever tried the Clyde Mays stuff. It's MGP distillate. And I think the Alabama style whiskey, they do their own little apple twist or something to it after the fact or whatever it is. But I would love to try like a real Alabama whiskey just to see what happens in the climate.
I know it's the craft bourbon, craft whiskey in America has exploded. We all know that, but man, I would love to have bourbon in every state.
Yeah,
right? I want distilled and aged in every state and taste it, and then I'll do a live stream where I taste all 50, and it'll be a shit show, but it'll be awesome.
Will be.
But like
Platoon.
Yeah. But no, I really like, I would love to see, and we're kind of getting there, like America with whiskey be like how France is with wine, they're southern region wines or northern region. So I would love to see like what is Western or Southwestern, Southeastern, Northern, Midwest, Plains bourbon, all different styles of bourbon in America, because it can only be American. I look forward to the day when there's just like these established regions that aren't all sourcing from Kentucky, you know what I mean? They can eventually have all their own stuff aged and distilled in their individual climates. I'd love to see what whiskey, distilled in Utah, and everything like that.
So New Mexico, Del Bach. Have you tried Del Bach before?
Never heard of it.
So I never heard of it either until I found myself playing a gig in Tucson, at a festival in Tucson. And of course, like I said, first thing we do is hit up a liquor store and we see like what's on the shelf in terms of whiskey. They had a mesquite smoked whiskey. I can't remember if it was bourbon or if it was just like a American whiskey. I don't remember if it was straight. I don't remember anything about it other than it was Del Bach and it was mesquite. Those are the two words.
Okay.
And it was actually pretty tasty. It was really, really, really tasty. I'm curious if anybody who's watching has ever tried this Del Bach stuff, but it's interesting.
How do you spell it? Del Bach.
It's DL space BAC, I believe it's what
okay.
It is. Oh wait, I'll tell you what it is.
DL Bach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's actually I think oh so it's a Del Box single malt actually is what it is.
Oh,
It's an American single malt. But I tell you, it tastes like nothing that you've ever had before. It's like it's mesquite flavored through and through. It's so I even forgot it was a single malt because it's just such other profile kind of
yeah,
thing. And I like single malts okay, but this is like a whole different world. It's
yeah.
like uniquely American too.
That's
Um,
interesting.
yeah.
Dude, American single malt isn't a category that's blowing up too.
Man, I'm excited about it. I love the idea of taking the American take of like the American take of these new oak barrels and like all this kind of other experimentation going on and doing a single malt with it. I'm like, hey, I'm not I love my bourbon. I love the corn profile and all of that, but hey, I'm not married to it. I'm open.
Dude, I mean, it's all so cool. I mean, there's so much going on between American whiskey, rye blowing up. I think Canadian whiskey, I think is going to blow up even more.
Oh,
Like
speaking of Canadian whiskey, have you tried the Alberta stuff?
the didn't it won like Whiskey World Awards or whatever,
Yeah,
blah blah blah.
exactly.
I have not had it yet. No.
I'm finding it more on the shelves here in New York and New
Okay.
Jersey, like where I can go into, like pretty places that get high traffic with like people are known to go there for bourbon. And, I can get like an Alberta single barrel rye, cast strength rye for pretty reasonable at like MSRP, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't tried it yet, but I have tried the, what is it? The Preservation Distillery has a 14-year that's out, and it's a Canadian whiskey aged in Kentucky, though.
Oh.
Um, and it's good, man. It's good. It's like
Yeah.
a Werther's original. Like
Yeah.
it's like straight Werther's original. It's
Dude,
good.
and not many people are touching these things, like at least in America. Like that's what I'm telling you. Like I walk into our Benny's here in Chicago, and I
Yeah.
mean, you sometimes see like, and I know Canada has like, it's different than bourbon, so it's blended. They're allowed to add
Yeah.
certain things to it a little bit, so it's not as strict as like a bourbon, but
Right.
still on the shelf you'll see 15, 16, 18, 20, 25 year Canadian blended whiskeys for 50, 60, $70 sometimes. And I'm
Right.
like, dude, they got some who makes some really, the Crown Royal like 16 year is pretty damn good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um oh shoot, what this there's this one
It's not the Wiser, is it? Like JP
Wiser,
Wiser.
JP Wiser
Yeah,
has
yeah,
some really
yeah,
interesting releases too.
yeah.
That are like again that nobody's picking up in America. And I was talking to somebody from 1-8 Distilling who does the Untitled, and
Yeah.
they're going to be on the show next week. We're going to do a
Very
tasting,
cool.
and but I was talking to one of their reps and who's been in like whiskey for like 15 years now, and they're like everyone's talking. She was telling me she's like everyone's talking about like rum and Armagnac, and like they're doing great. She goes, but I'm telling you, she goes, Canadian whiskey is gonna pop off in the next couple of
Yeah.
years. He goes, that is gonna be the next, especially in whiskey category. I think that's gonna be the next one that's gonna start getting a lot of attention, a lot of awards, a lot of things like that. So keep an eye on that one, folks. That's all I got to say.
I will. I will. You all heard it here first. Like, 3 years from now, when you are spending, $150 for a bottle of Crown Royal
Yeah,
Standard.
Crown Royal Peach.
Yeah, exactly.
People buying anything, yeah, anything with a Canadian whiskey label on it
Exactly.
in 3 to 5 years.
So I'm
Start.
gonna do. I'm gonna do like a quick kind of insane comparison, real quick. So
Okay.
I'm taking up my sample from New Riff. I'm gonna go back to that one real quick,
Yep.
and I want to do because we talked about this high rye thing,
Yeah.
and a high rye that came out. That I'm going to compare it to, and I know a lot of folks watching here is like, "What in the hell? Why are you going to do that?" I'm going to put it up against the Four Roses
Ooh.
130 year,
Ooh.
right? The
The
anniversary.
big boy.
Because truth is, I am confident that this can hold up. I'm confident that the new riff will be able to hold up because it is good. It's good, y'all.
While you pour it, yeah. So I talked to a friend of mine, one of the friends who helps us, who kind of helped my relationship there over at New Riff. he was talking about he got a bottle of, I don't know if you saw it, New Riff was doing, they did a sale of a 15-year, okay, it was
Yes.
basically MGP, right?
Yeah, I saw it after the fact, but yeah, I did.
Yeah, they did a special thing. They were giving, I think they were giving like the profits to charity or something like that. But
Right.
they had some of their old MGP stock still, and so they released a 50. It was a 15-year New Riff, which was MGP High Rye, and he got one. So he got one. He tried it. He's like, he looked me dead in the eye. He goes, honestly, he goes, our he's like, he's talking about, I think, our last year's like Whiskey Mania pick. He goes,
Yeah.
our pick last year, our 4-year, New Riff single barrel, goes, I think it was better. He goes, I liked it better than the 15-year. I think it was a blend. It was a 15-year blend. But he goes, I liked it better than the 15-year MGP blend.
Yeah.
So like New Riff is doing some good stuff.
I agree with that 100%. And occasionally you can find like those 14-year, 13 to 15-year-old MGP stuff. You can still find it a little bit. Widow Jane does like a 13-year
Right.
single barrel, and a good friend of mine, Sean Kim, who has 120 wine and spirits here in New York. He picked out a 15-year barrel, and I must admit it's delicious. I don't think it's a high rye barrel. I think it's one of their low rye profiles for the Widow Jane, but it's delicious. Don't get me wrong. One thing about MGP though, I think of whiskey a little bit in music terms, is it's a little heavy on the bass notes, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
it comes off a little bit more like Beethoven to me, in that sense.
I love it. Yes.
And New Riff, is a little bit more like Mozart. Like, you definitely, you have this a bit more flavor, like broader flavor profile. MGP, you're gonna get those chocolate kind of things going on. I dig it. The dark dry fruit, all of that, I dig it. But I tell you, there's something about hearing like this full range, this full spectrum that frequently comes out of New Riff that I find to be super intriguing. I typically find like when it hits with the high rye stuff, moderate to high rye stuff. It's hard to get it with like a low rye bourbon.
Sure.
To get like some of those really nice like floral and some of the lime citrus notes that really like fit well along with that kind of lower end darker taste and all that. It's hard to get that with like a low rye bourbon, which I love it. I love it, but at the same time, sometimes you want like that full spectrum.
Yeah, dude, layers. Give me the layers.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, go ahead. I want to see this. I'm going to pour another little pour. We're watching you now, Mark.
All right. So this has like this slight honey note.
So
Like
which one is it? I
this
totally
Four
missed
Roses.
it. Okay,
The
I was
Four
pouring.
Roses. Yeah, the Four Roses, 130 year has a slight honey note. But I must admit, it's funny because while the profile isn't a huge, the proof isn't a huge difference. So this is 54.2%. So right at 108.4. And I think the New Riff pick, what is that? That's at
105.7.
Yeah, it's interesting because the New Riff packs more flavor overall, taste like, and it's also a broader spectrum of flavors. Like with this, oh yeah, like you get from like the honey side to like a little bit of the lemon side to orange, lots of orange like right there in the middle. I do get some of these like a slight caramel like towards the bottom side. I must admit, like the Four Roses 130 year, it's a little bit more of like I get two primary notes here. I get kind of like the heavier honey side, and then I get like a little bit of like a floral, kind of like a honeysuckle thing going on. I can think of like 6 different flavors coming out of this New Riff, while really only thinking about 2 coming out of this Four Roses. So that's one way I think about it.
Wow.
It's good, man. The New Riff is really good.
I'm telling you, folks, like they are doing ish right. Like they're doing stuff right. And you know, it blows my mind to keep in mind that this is a distillery that has currently, I know as we saw when we were there, they're expanding, but like they have one rick house.
Yeah.
One God blessed rick house, and they're able to have these awesome variations in their single barrels and these incredible profiles. And I mean,
Yeah.
normally these are the things the big distilleries have to have. You know, they blend from 6 different warehouses in 2 different counties. You know, with different one's on a hill and one's on a river, and you know all this stuff. They're 17 miles
Look
apart.
At a burger's label.
Yeah, no kidding. And so from one rick house in Cincinnati, or you know Newport, they're able to get all these flavor, like, which says a lot about their distillation, their ingredients, their process, and everything like that. So no, I'm a huge fan of what they're doing, and I'm gonna send an email probably tonight about lining up another. Because you know what, it's a silly little thing, but I love that they offer quarter barrels.
Man, it's not silly at all. You know,
For
it's
smaller
like
groups, it's incredible.
absolutely, absolutely. And I bet that, you know, they probably get a lot of learnings from, you know, what people pick and how they go about picking it and all of that. I'm sure they get like a great deal of learnings. You know, I will say, and I'm saying this from a completely selfish place, again, another one of these things. You know, if they ever wanted to, you know, throw some of those short barrels to those quarter barrel picks, because, you know, hey, um, you're getting a quarter barrel anyway. You don't have to worry
Right?
about us, like, you know, hitting that quota of, you know, expecting 200 bottles and only getting 60. You know, we're only expecting 60. So, you know, if you want to throw some short barrels over there towards us, like, let's do it.
I like your style. Maybe I'll have you start talking to them for me. No, absolutely. They're kicking ass. And
Yeah, they are.
so Mark, before we wrap up here, as I told you before, and I'm going to tell everybody now, I'm going to be ending, you know, every interview and everything with like my own riff on the infamous like James Lipton Inside the Actors Studio questions.
It's a great show. It's a great show. I
Hell
love it.
yeah.
I love the show.
Absolutely. So like these are going to be like standard questions I ask everybody, patrons and guests alike and everything like that. So you are my guinea pig. So I hope you appreciate that.
I'm down. Let's do it. Let's do
So
it.
all right. So the it'll be 4 questions. The 4 questions, the wrestling with whiskey questions. So first of all, what would a Marcus Moore cocktail consist of
Um,
or
it
taste
would
like?
it would taste like it would probably have some pecan element in it. My parents have a pecan farm, and so like it's
Mm.
gonna definitely include pecan, definitely include bourbon, and I would say let's do a little bit of apple something in it. So maybe basically like an apple pecan old fashioned. I don't know, like
Okay, I love that. Put some
or
family
apple
in the.
pecan bourbon martini, right? Like,
That sounds actually pretty damn nice. Um, 2. What is your holy grail bottle? And would you open it if you got it?
um, Jeez, you know, I'll tell you if I don't mean to go on a rant here a
I
little
love
bit,
it.
but as a violinist, like, you know, everybody always talks about like a Stradivarius violin, right? And
Hmm.
like the Stradivarius violin costing, you know, $6 million. There's so much in, if there's any violinist or any instrumentalist here, if you're a guitar player or whatever, right? There's always like from the time that you start taking the instrument serious to could be forever. You're always dreaming of like that ideal instrument in your head. There comes a point in time where you realize that, look, I'm not gonna have $6 million to spend towards this, and even if I did, I probably would choose not to spend $6 million on a violin. Just saying, like, even if
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah.
So I need to like level my expectations a bit about what that is. And so in many ways, I kind of come to terms with that with whiskey, where I'm just like, I am a MSRP only dude. So, and like whatever I get, it's gotta be at MSRP. That like, and so, and in many ways, I think I've kind of pushed some of those things off in my mind about like, what is this like? What's that dream bottle? With that being said, um, I would probably have to say, like, if I had to choose right off the bat, right now, one that I'm looking out for is like one of the original. Um, well, it could be like a Desert Jewel, maybe like a Smoke Wagon
Mm.
Desert Jewel, or one of the older Smoke Wagons. I'm curious about. I have a couple Smoke Wagons, 8 years that I was lucky to get MSRP, and that's they're great. I'm really fantastic. I'm really interested to see what that would have been like a little bit older. I wasn't able to get anything older than 8 years right now. So if I could do like a Smoke Wagon that's a bit older, I'm curious to see what that's like. I would say
Oh,
between that and like um, I would say that and one of the original, Stitzel Weller stuff. You gotta throw that in there. You know,
I mean, yeah, you'd be a fool not to.
yeah.
um, question 3: on your deathbed, you get the chance for one last pour. Before you go, what is it?
Yeah, it would have to be go back to the Stitzel Weller stuff, right? Like I want to try like a 23-year-old Pappy from 20 years ago, not
Okay.
like today. I like
Yeah.
give it to me like 20 years ago or something. Like that's what I want.
Okay.
Something of the sort. Yeah. Or can I make a dream whiskey? Like can I just make it up as
I
well? Like
mean,
or like something that's maybe served at less than barrel proof, but I want to try it at barrel like truly barrel proof.
oh, sure.
Actually, I'm curious to see what Elmer T. Lee is like at barrel strength.
That's interesting.
Because I actually like it in general. It's not worth. I don't think it's quite worth the price at what it is, but it holds up like for the proof, honestly,
Yeah.
fairly well. And so I'm curious at like what is this like at barrel strength. I'm just curious because I think
So
it could be good.
barrel strength Elmer T. Lee would be your last pour, maybe.
I'm very experimental in that sense. Like I'm just like, hey, like let's give. I'm curious about the next thing. That's one of the things that I love about single barrel picks in general, right? It's like it's one time and it's gone, right? It's like your memory is like how great it tasted, and you're not sitting there chasing after some pipe dream or chasing after something that's going to cost you, 4 times the MSRP. It's like it really is about like that uniqueness of the barrel. So yeah, I would probably try like, and that's one reason why I like I say El Lee. It's a single barrel program. It puts
Hmm.
out like pretty decent product for the proof. Let's see what it's like at full proof. And like in my deathbed, I might be like, it was shitty, or I might be like, it was good. That's fine.
But I love that because you're willing to take the risk even at the last moment.
Yeah.
Willing to take the risk and try it. Excellent. And question 4, the final question, again mimicking James Lipton. If there is indeed a bourbon heaven, what would you want Jimmy Russell to say to you at the pearly gates?
Oh.
I know he's not
Oh.
dead yet, so I'm sorry if that's in bad taste.
Yeah. No. I was gonna say he's not dead yet, but
But when he does, he will be like, he'll be the gatekeeper of bourbon heaven.
so as a person who is a huge Russell Reserves fan, like huge, I have yet to find a single barrel pick of Russell Reserves that I don't like. Every last one of them I love.
Oh,
Various levels of love, but I love. Um, I would say, he would have to say, you did fall into the hype.
meaning?
Meaning you actually went after what was good and what tasted good and like focused on what was like quality instead of like what was the hype around the brand, the hype around, whatever, that people get caught up in. It's
Yeah.
like this can be a very hype driven marketing. I mean, alcohol is a marketing driven industry, right? And like it's so easy for people to get caught up in like chasing that one thing and like miss like, hey, this Russell's pick is actually fantastic. You should probably consider it. Or like this Kentucky Spirit pick is like fantastic. You should try that. Like there's 100 of these on the shelf, while you're staring at this Parker's that's 4x MSRP or 5x MSRP, and you're gonna
Right.
choose that. Really? Is it really worth it? I don't know.
That's a. I love that. For the first answer to that ridiculous question, I actually really like that response. That's awesome. Well, Mark, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you being taking the time to be on the show, to share some of your life with us and everything like that. Really quick, I'm not sure where you want people to find you, but if there's anywhere people can kind of check you out, where would that be?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at nerdy in ratchet. So that's the word nerdy and then the letter N ratchet. So you can find me there.
Yep, that's right, and you can see that if you're watching this. It's right under his name there, right under his screen. Yeah, again, Mark, thanks again. Cheers for being here and everything like that. Absolutely.
Thank you for having me. And join the club, everyone. If you haven't joined already, it's a group. It's a great group of people. You'll love it. Trust me. It's amazing.
I appreciate you saying that. It's a fun time and everything like that. We're non-pretentious, fun-loving whiskey people. Get your asses in there. I'm going to do a quick outro and everything. Hang around for a second. I'll talk to you after we're done. But I will get over to the people real quick. Oh, everybody, thank you so much for joining us once again for Wrestling with Whiskey Weekly. You heard Mark there. Real quick shout out. Join the club. There are the tiers. You know all the rest. I said it at the beginning. 2 different tiers. If you want to be on the show, you can join tier 2. If you want to be part of the Barrel Club, tier 1. You can join us on these picks. Help us select some of these awesome whiskeys. Yes, Scorpion in the chat. One of us. Goozo, Gazo, Goozo. And you could be one of our extra special patrons here at the Social Media Sippin' patron level. It would be fantastic. Like I said earlier, next week, we will have 1-8 Distilling on. We are trying both the Untitled 17 series, which is coming out. Just landed in Chicago, actually, and is rolling out currently. We're going to be trying that, as well as the 1-8 homegrown line. We have their bourbon, we have their rye, and we have their barrel-aged gin. So we'll be trying that with the fine folks from 1-8 Distilling. Join us then. But until then, always be meeting new people. Always be trying new things that aren't living up to the hype. Just like Mark said to the eventually bereaved Jimmy Russell. Not yet. He's still alive. I don't want to get in trouble with Wild Turkey for that. But I'm just imagining when Jimmy Russell passes to the great beyond, he will be the gatekeeper of Bourbon Heaven. So please, Eddie, don't be mad at me. Appreciate all of you for being here. Thank you guys so much. This will be obviously the video on demand for those who did not see it. Until next time, guys. Until next week, always be wrestling with whiskey. Cheers, everybody.